If you keep your eyes sharp, you'll spot more in a forest than just a big bunch of big-ass trees. Forests are places where things don't just get lost, they get hidden. They're not always the safest spots to wander into, especially once the sun sets, but you can never be completely sure what's lying deep within the woods, and this video proves exactly that, so watch till the end. Number 5. Treetop Tower of Rugan. Most tree houses are barely more than a few planks nailed to a branch, but the Treetop Tower of Rugan is on another level entirely. Located in Binz, Germany, this spiral wooden walkway was designed around a 100-foot-tall copper beech tree standing proudly at its center. It's not a tree house, it's a full architectural marvel that wraps itself around nature instead of intruding on it. At the top of the winding path is the Eagle's Nest, a panoramic viewing platform with a sweeping view of the island of Rugan, known for its untouched natural beauty. The structure also acts as a home to countless birds, bugs, and small woodland animals, which only makes the climb more magical. Local officials say the tower will remain as long as the beech tree thrives. And with the tree already 80 years old and still healthy, given that beech trees can live for 300 years, it's likely to be part of the landscape for generations to come. It's unbelievable. Number 14. Otoi Ceremonial Center. Outside Temoaya in Mexico, this strange stone complex rises from the landscape, like the set of a dystopian film. This is the Otoi Ceremonial Center, designed not by ancient hands but in 1977 as a cultural monument to the Otoi people. Though the foundations were laid in the late 70s, construction continued into the late 1980s. The structure now hosts ceremonies twice a month, led by the Otoi Supreme Council, which offer tributes to the four elements. The real mystery isn't the design, it's the past. Almost nothing is known about the original Otoi civilization. They were conquered by the Aztecs and later devastated by Spanish invaders, leaving behind barely a trace. Even those who identify as Otoi today admit they have limited knowledge of their heritage. A small museum at the site helps fill in the blanks, but much of what surrounds the center is symbolic, built from fragments of stories that history couldn't fully hold on to. Number 13. Abandoned Aston Martin DB4. There are only a few places you expect to spot an Aston Martin DB4, a luxury showroom, a lockdown collector's garage, or maybe a museum, not abandoned in a random American forest. But that's exactly where this worn-out classic was found, left to rot beside a creepy, crumbling cabin straight out of a horror film. This British-built DB4, still bearing its original license plate, had been shipped across the Atlantic over 50 years earlier. Records suggest it was driven into the woods sometime in the 1970s and then just left. Considering only 1,200 DB4s were ever made, even one in this rough shape still holds serious value. That's why a private collector snagged it for a jaw-dropping $475,000 at auction. Why someone would drive a rare piece of British auto history into the forest and never come back is still a mystery, but the car's story didn't end there. It's now in better hands, far from the cabin where it nearly faded into the soil. Number 12. 54 Columns in Atlanta. Atlanta's 54 Columns is one of those installations that people either call a genius or a total eyesore. Designed by sculptor Sol LeWitt and unveiled in 1999, the piece is exactly what the name says, 54 concrete pillars arranged like a scattered city skyline. The heights vary between 10 to 20 feet, intentionally chaotic, giving the illusion of a miniature downtown when seen from afar. LeWitt said the work pays tribute to Atlanta's industrial identity, but many locals weren't buying it. Some hated it enough to take action, like the person who splashed one of the columns with bright pink latex paint in protest back in 2003. Even earlier, someone planted dogwood trees between the pillars to hide them from view. Both efforts were scrubbed out, the paint removed, trees chopped. Love it or hate it, the installation stayed, and over time, even some of its harshest critics started to view it not as an eyesore, but as part of the city's cultural fabric. Number 11. Lake Candi. A century ago, the Tian Shan Mountains of Kazakhstan looked nothing like this. That changed in 1911 when a huge earthquake triggered a landslide that dammed the valley. Rainwater followed, and over time, a lake formed, now known as Lake Candi. Its surface glows turquoise, reflecting a forest of pale spruce trunks that jut through the water like skeletal fingers. Above, they look lifeless. But under the surface, the sunken trees remain intact, preserved in cold water that slows decay. The effect is eerie, like an upside-down forest frozen in time. Most tourists pass it by in favor of the more popular Kolsai lakes just a few miles away, so Candi remains peaceful, quiet, and almost untouched. Even with its surreal beauty, it doesn't draw crowds. Maybe that's why it feels like a hidden moment trapped between disaster and tranquility. You're not just seeing nature, you're seeing how quickly it can change everything and still keep it beautiful. Number 10. Abandoned steamship in Kentucky. In a shallow creek near Petersburg, Kentucky, a century-old ship rests quietly beneath the trees. Known originally as the Celt, this vessel once sailed as a luxury yacht for railroad tycoon J. Rogers Maxwell in 1902. Her journey didn't stop there. She served in World War I under the name USS Sachem, became a fishing charter during the Depression, and was reactivated by the Navy in 1941 as USS Fanak for sonar training. After the war, she took on a new life as Captain Martin, a party boat, and later ferried tourists around New York under names like Sightseer and Circle Line V. Somewhere along the way, she returned to her original name, made an unexpected cameo in Madonna's Papa Don't Preach video, and was then left to decay in a backwater creek. Her hull still bears the layers of every life she's lived. From wartime service to party cruises, it's a ship that's seen more than most people ever will. Number 9. Windbor Trolley Graveyard. To most, the Windbor Trolley Graveyard in Pennsylvania looks like a cluster of decaying, rust-covered trolleys. But to Ed Metka, the man behind it, it's a preservation project born out of childhood memories. After riding trolleys through Chicago as a kid, Metka developed a lifelong affection for them. When he retired, he bought 14 decommissioned streetcars and had them transported to Windbor. Unfortunately, time hasn't been kind. Without the funds for upkeep, nature is reclaiming the collection, trees growing through shattered windows, vines wrapping around rusted metal. Metka's hope is to find someone who shares his passion and has the resources to restore them. Ideally, he envisions a future where some of these trolleys roll again through an urban rail system. But honestly, a few are probably beyond saving. Still, what remains is a hauntingly beautiful glimpse into the golden age of public transit. What do you think about it? Number 8. Nescoin Ghost Forest. Nescoin Beach in Oregon hides something far older than its crashing waves and sandy dunes. Scattered across the shore are the remains of what scientists call the Nescoin Ghost Forest, stumps of ancient Sitka spruce trees that once soared 200 feet into the sky. Over 2,000 years old, the forest was buried suddenly in 1700 when a massive earthquake caused the land to sink into the tidal zone. Ocean water surged in, flooding the base and sealing the trees in layers of sand and mud. For centuries, they stayed hidden. Then, in 1997, a violent storm ripped away the sand and exposed the stumps once again. What's left is eerie, darkened wood, water-worn and silent, now surrounded by tide pools and sea creatures. In the fog, they resemble a skeletal forest rising from the surf. It's not hard to see how the place earned its ghostly name. Nature buried this forest once, and eventually, it'll probably cover it again. Number 8. Forest megaphones. In the woods of Varstu Parish, Estonia, there stand 3 massive wooden megaphones that look like they belong in a surreal art exhibit. They weren't built by designers or engineers, but by interior architecture students from a local university. The project wasn't just for show, it was meant to amplify the natural soundscape. Wind, birds, rustling leaves, it all filters through the cones and surrounds anyone standing in the middle. It's become a kind of passive concert hall, with musicians occasionally using the space to record or perform unplugged sets. Though they don't exactly blend into the forest, there's something raw and honest about how they shape the space around them. Whether you see them as acoustic tools or strange sculptures, they offer a rare, immersive way to experience sound, and unlike most installations, this one doesn't rely on technology or power, just wood, air, and the strange magic of a well-placed echo. Number 6. Järvenpää Antitank Barrier. Just outside the city of Järvenpää in Sweden, there's a field of strange concrete shapes that look like oversized stone teeth. They're not part of some modern art display, they're remnants of a World War II defense plan. Known as Dragon's Teeth, these anti-tank barriers were meant to stop enemy vehicles dead in their tracks. Sweden stayed neutral during the war, but it didn't take peace for granted. Officials feared an eventual invasion and reinforced strategic locations across the country with defenses like this. This particular installation guarded one of the main routes into Stockholm. Ironically, it wasn't even finished in time to matter. Construction dragged on and wasn't completed until 1944, long after the Allies had already landed in Normandy. Now these relics sit quietly in the grass, forgotten by most and unmarked by signs, but they're a powerful reminder of how close the world once came to total collapse. Alright guys, now let's move to number 5. Shilin Stone Forest. South of Kunming in Yunnan province lies a natural maze that's nothing like a typical forest. Shilin, the stone forest, spreads across more than 180 square miles with jagged limestone pillars that stand like towering sculptures. Some formations shoot straight up like petrified trees, while others twist in shapes that seem too precise to be random. Locals tell stories of Ashima, a young Yi woman who was forbidden to marry her love, fled into the forest, and was turned to stone, now immortalized as the site's most famous rock. The legend might not hold up to scrutiny, but the site's cultural roots run deep. For centuries, the Yi people have celebrated the Torch Festival here, turning the rocky landscape into a backdrop for traditional music, theater, and dance. It's chaotic and beautiful at the same time. With labyrinth-like trails and towering stones at every turn, Shilin is less like a forest and more like a planet of its own. Number 4. Hallerbos, Belgium Blue Forest. Just outside Halle in Belgium, Hallerbos Forest explodes in color every spring. From mid-April through early May, the forest floor is blanketed in a dense spread of wild bluebells, forming a surreal carpet of violet blue under the towering trees. The site draws photographers, hikers, and curious visitors from across Europe, but the real residents aren't thrilled. Deer, rabbits, and foxes often retreat deeper into the woods during the seasonal flood of tourists. Besides the floral show, Hallerbos is home to an impressive variety of trees. Giant sequoia, beech, pine, ash, and oak all grow thick across the area. Over 100 bird species have been spotted nesting in the forest canopy, making it a favorite for ornithologists as well. It's easy to call it Instagram-worthy, but Hallerbos offers more than a quick snapshot. It's one of those rare places on Earth. Number 3. Jimmy Luque Sits Giant Signature. Jimmy Luck didn't just leave his mark, he carved it into the earth. Near Smithville, Texas, his name stretches across the landscape in letters so massive they're visible from space. It's not art, it's not a prank. It's a geoglyph and it serves a purpose, at least according to Jimmy. He says it's a method of alley cropping, a farming technique that helps prevent soil erosion. To create it, he cleared tree lines on his land, letting the gaps form letters spelling out luck. NASA caught sight of it through satellite images and realized it was a perfect calibration tool for testing photo resolution. Since then, astronauts and imaging specialists have used Jimmy's name to fine-tune visuals from orbit. Whether it's an agricultural strategy or ego at work, the signature stuck. And now, thanks to satellite tech and one man's bold landscaping, Jimmy Luck's name is permanently etched into Earth's gallery of strange landmarks. Number 2. Borthsitz Buried Forest. On the beach near Borth in Wales, something unusual emerges whenever the tide recedes. Scattered across the sand are lumps that resemble mossy stones, but they're actually the fossilized remains of a forest over 4,000 years old. Storms in 2014 ripped away sand layers that had kept this ancient woodland hidden, revealing preserved stumps of oak, ash, and birch. Even more remarkable is what lies between them. Traces of wooden walkways, complete with human and animal footprints still embedded in the peat. Archaeologists believe this may be linked to the long-lost kingdom of Cantre'r Gwaelod, a mythical Welsh civilization said to have sunk beneath the waves. While the story might lean more toward folklore, the forest itself is real, and so are the traces of those who once moved through it. Every tidal cycle uncovers a little more of a world time forgot, giving scientists and storytellers new reasons to keep returning to this stretch of coast. Number 1. Marx Generator. On the outskirts of Istra, Russia, sits an enormous skeletal structure that once produced artificial lightning. Built in the 1970s by the Russian Electrical Engineering Institute, the Marx generator wasn't a power plant. It was an experiment, its purpose testing how military aircraft could handle lightning strikes. At full charge, it could release massive jolts lasting just over 100 microseconds. That tiny burst packed enough voltage to rival every other lightning test system in the country. Boris Yeltsin once supervised the facility before his political career took off. After the Soviet Union collapsed, the generator was largely abandoned, only reactivated on rare occasions. One of those came in 2014 to test the Sukhoi Superjet 100. Standing among its towers now, it's hard to imagine the raw energy this rusting skeleton once held. But for a brief period, this wasn't just a relic. It was one of the most intense silent battlegrounds for lightning and steel. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon in the next one.